It's in the quiet hours, the ones most people spend asleep, that some of the strangest, most unsettling things can happen. These are 3 stories from people who worked the night shift. I took the overnight office cleaning job because the pay was better, and with a 6-month-old at home, we needed every extra dollar. The agency placed me at a low-rise medical administration building in a semi-independent. My supervisor, Maria, showed me the ropes on my first night. Empty trash, vacuumed the patterned carpets, wiped down the laminate counters in the break rooms. You'll have the place to yourself, she said. It's dead quiet. Just keep to the checklist. I'm not a jumpy person. Exhaustion from new motherhood had sanded down my nerves to a dull, functional edge. The first weird thing was on my 3rd night. In the East Wing executive suite, I found a heavy-duty black trash bag, the kind you'd use for yard waste, knotted and sitting beside the regular desk side bin. It was out of place, but Maria had said the building manager sometimes did odd projects after hours. I figured he'd forgotten it. I heaved it into my cart, and the weight of it, the soft, dense give of the contents, made me pause. It felt like wet laundry, I told myself. It was probably old insulation or discarded uniforms. I rationalized it because the alternative that someone had brought something that heavy and awkward into a pristine office after dark didn't fit the quiet, fluorescent-lit world of my checklist. The isolation of the building truly set in around 2 a.m. when my phone died. I'd forgotten my charger, and the backup battery I carried was dead. The silence wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a thick, pressurized thing. I was on the 2nd floor when I heard the first concrete anomaly. It was the sound of a door latch engaging, not the bang of a door closing, but the precise, metallic snick of the lever-style handle being pushed down and released. My cart was parked outside an open office. I stood still, holding a wad of paper towels. The rational part of my brain, the part running on autopilot and sleep deprivation, offered an explanation. The building was old, pipes settling, the HVAC system kicking on, but HVAC systems don't sound like door latches. I called out, "Hello, building security." My voice was swallowed by the carpet and the acoustic ceiling tiles. No answer. That's when I walked to the stairwell door and pushed it open. The concrete stairwell was cold, lit by a single bulb on each landing. Empty. As I let the door swing shut, I noticed something on the floor just inside the stairwell. It was a child's hair clip, a small, pink plastic butterfly. It was clean, not dusty. It felt so violently out of place in this world of Bayesian business that a cold wire of dread tightened in my chest. Someone else had been here recently. Someone with a child, or I pocketed it, telling myself a janitor's kid must have dropped it. But we didn't have any other janitors on this shift. I tried to stick to my route, but my focus was shattered. Every shadow in an empty cubicle looked deliberate. I started hearing the clicks more frequently, but never from the direction I was looking. One from behind me, down a corridor I'd just cleaned. Another from the floor above, a faint but unmistakable snick through the ceiling. I'd stop, listen, my heart thudding against my ribs. "It's the building," I whispered to myself. "Old buildings make noises." The doors here were supposed to be locked, but one was slightly ajar. Inside, it was darker. The motion-activated lights not triggering. My flashlight beam swept over rows of filing cabinets. On the floor, in the middle of the aisle, was a single, fresh footprint. Not from a shoe, it was a bare foot, outlined in what looked like dark mud or damp earth. The shape was klirtos arch, heel. It pointed toward the back wall. There was no logical path for that to be here. No one walks barefoot in a medical records room. No one tracks in mud from a carpeted, climate-controlled hallway. I backed out, my breath coming in short gasps. I decided to leave. I'd explain it to the agency in the morning. I wheeled my cart, quickly, toward the service elevator at the core of the building. As I passed the janitor's closet, a small room with slop sinks and supplies, I saw the door was open wider than I'd left it. Inside, on the concrete floor in front of the sink, was a wet, dark patch, and in the center of the patch was another bare footprint, this one facing out as if someone had stood there, dripping, and watched me go by. That's when I heard the latch on the stairwell door at the end of the hall click shut again. Then, 10 seconds later, the latch on the door at the opposite end of the same hallway clicked. Someone was sealing the floor. Panic fired through me. I abandoned the cart and ran to the main stairwell, the one leading to the lobby. The heavy fire door was locked. The push bar didn't budge. It had never been locked before. I could see the first floor landing through the wire-reinforced window in the door, but I couldn't get out. I was trapped on the second floor. The clicks were coming more regularly now, a slow, methodical circuit around the floor's perimeter. Snicked to the north, snick to the east. I fumbled in my pocket for the hair clip, its plastic edges biting into my palm. The only other way down was the service elevator or the freight stairs in the back. I sprinted for the service elevator, hitting the call button. It was on a higher floor. As I waited, trembling, I looked down the long, dim corridor. At the far end, where the emergency exit light cast a weak red glow, a figure stepped slowly out of a doorway. It was a man, silhouetted. He wasn't rushing. He was just standing there. Then he took one deliberate step forward into the light of an office doorway. He was barefoot, his pants were dark and wet to the knees. In his hand, he held a long, heavy-duty zip tie, the industrial white kind. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the ceiling, at the sprinkler heads and the acoustic tiles, as if studying the grid of the building itself. Then, calmly, he knelt down on the carpet and placed his palm flat on the floor. He stayed like that for a 5 count, feeling the vibrations. Feeling my vibrations through the structure. He stood up, and now he turned his head. He looked right down the corridor at me, and he started walking, not running, with a steady, plodding gait that spoke of absolute certainty. I fell inside, mashing the lobby button and the closed door button repeatedly. As the doors began to shut, I saw him round the corner into the hallway. He didn't speed up. He just watched the elevator close, his expression blank, like a technician observing a process. The elevator descended. The moment the doors opened onto the dark lobby, I ran for the main glass doors. They were locked with a keypad. I sobbed, punching in the after-hours code Maria had given me. It beeped, red, invalid. I tried again, red. From the service stairwell door behind the reception desk, I heard a single, soft click. I ended up smashing a small pane of glass in the door with a fire extinguisher, triggering a blaring alarm. I scrambled out and ran across the parking lot until I found a gas station a quarter mile away. The police came. I was hysterical, babbling about the man, the locks, the hair clip. They went to the building. Later, a detective sat with me at the station. He told me they found no one inside. The doors were all unlocked. My cleaning cart was where I left it. But they did find things, he said, choosing his words carefully. In the crawlspace, access, in the janitor's closet, the one I never opened, they found evidence someone had been living there intermittently for months. Empty water bottles, protein bar wrappers, a small, neat pile of items. a woman's wristwatch, a set of car keys, a wedding ring, and 3 other hair clips, different from the one I had. They also found that the locking mechanisms on several interior stairwell doors had been deliberately, expertly modified. They could be remotely engaged from within the crawl space, using a series of wires and pulleys. The detective showed me a photo of a schematic drawn in pencil on the back of an old blueprint, detailing the floor plan and what looked like timed patrol routes. "We're looking into a few missing persons cases in the area," he said, his voice flat. "Service industry workers, mostly. Night cleaners, security guards on solo shifts. Nothing definitive links them to this location." He returned the pink butterfly clip to me in a small evidence bag. I never went back to collect my final paycheck. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of my own house, I'll hear the soft click of my baby's bedroom door settling in its frame. My whole body goes rigid. I'll stand there for an hour, listening, not to the monitor, but to the house itself, feeling for a vibration through the floor that doesn't belong to me. My friend Leo covered my security gig at the university library for a week when my dad was in the hospital. So when he asked me to take his overnight shift at the Claymore Telecom building, I couldn't say no. "It's easy money," he promised. "A 12-story glass box. You watch cameras, do 2 patrols, write a log. They never call." The building was a sleek, modern thing downtown, mostly empty after 6 p.m. The guard post was in the bright, marble-floored lobby. The first night was boring. I found a half-full mug of coffee on a desk in the 9th floor finance department. It was still warm. I thought, okay, a workaholic. I poured it out in the break room sink. The next night, same floor, same desk. Another mug, also warm. This time, I mentioned it in my log. The site supervisor radioed me back, his voice crackling with static. Negative on overtime approvals for that sector. Floor should be sterile. Check the card reader log. I-deeds. No one had badged into the 9th floor after 5:45 p.m. Sat there, a thin wisp of steam curling up in the beam of my flashlight. Leo had said they never call, but they just called about coffee. The 3rd night, a storm rolled in. Around midnight, the power flickered. The backup generators kicked on for the essential systems, but the lobby lights dimmed to a yellow haze, and half the camera feeds on my monitor bank went black. The site supervisor came on the radio. "We've got a grid disturbance. Secure the perimeter doors and sit tight. We're getting remote errors on the keycard system. Don't rely on it for access." That was the lock-in. The main doors were on magnetic locks that required a system ping to release. With the system glitching, I was effectively locked in. And with the cameras down, the building was no longer a glass box I could see into. It was a dark grid of blind spots. My patrol at 2 a.m. felt different. The storm raged outside, throwing shadows of driving rain across the walls. I took the service elevator to the 9th floor, my hand on my flashlight. The desk was clean, no mug. I felt a stupid wave of relief. As I turned to leave, I heard it not from the desk, but from the south stairwell, the distinct, hollow thump of a heavy door closing, several floors above me. It wasn't the wind. The stairwell doors were interior. I called out, "Security!" My voice echoed up the concrete shaft. Silence. Then, from much closer, maybe a floor or 2 down, I heard the squeak of a rubber sole on a stair tread. I radioed the situation. Static was my only reply. The storm was interfering. I decided to retreat to the lobby, to the one place with light and a working landline. I took the service elevator down. When the doors opened on the lobby, everything was as I left it, dim, quiet. But the mug was back. It was now on the security desk, directly in front of my chair. It was full. No one had badged in. The perimeter was supposedly secure. I picked up the mug. It was hot, almost too hot to hold, and hurled it into a trash can. The crash of ceramic was violently loud. I stood there, breathing hard, listening. That's when I heard the elevator. Not the service elevator I'd just used, but the main bank of passenger elevators. A soft ding from the bank, the sound of doors sliding open. No one had called an elevator. I watched the indicator above the central car. It lit up for the second floor. Then the third. It was moving up, stopping at each floor, the doors opening and closing on a timer, a standard fire safety cycle, maybe triggered by the power event. But it shouldn't have been active. I watched the numbers climb. 4, 5, 6. It was methodical, relentless. It hit the 9th floor and stopped. The light stayed on for a full minute. Then it began descending. 8, 7, 6. It was coming back down. I backed away from the desk toward the main doors. I pushed on the bar. It didn't budge. The magnetic lock was still engaged. The elevator reached the lobby. Ding! The door slid open. The car was empty, brightly lit. I didn't move. After a 30-second pause, the doors closed. The indicator lit up for the second floor again. It was starting another cycle. Up and down, up and down. An empty car offering rides to no one. My radio suddenly crackled to life. Can you confirm 9th floor movement on the thermal? I grabbed it. I'm in the lobby. The elevators are cycling on their own. The response was garbled. Not possible. System override, manual control only from the transmission died. The elevator dinged again on the 9th floor and stayed there. The rational part of my mind had been burned away by the hot coffee and the cycling elevator. Someone was in here with me. They, rat, to be. I needed a weapon. Something. I remembered a fire axe behind glass in the service stairwell on the ground floor. I ran for the stairwell door, yanked it open. The concrete stairs were cold, lit by emergency lights. I broke the glass, grabbed the axe. It felt solid, real. As I turned, axe in hand, I looked up the stairwell. It was a hollow square, floors rising into darkness, and on the landing of the second floor, leaning casually against the railing, looking down at me, was a man. He wore dark clothes. He wasn't hiding. He was just observing. He held a white ceramic mug in his hand. He took a slow sip. Then he placed the mug carefully on the railing. He looked at me. His face calm, devoid of any threat or urgency. He gave a small, almost imperceptible shrug, as if to say, "What are you going to do?" Then he turned and began to walk up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Not running, not even hurrying. His footsteps were measured, echoing. He didn't look back. He just walked away, deeper into the building he now controlled. The horror wasn't in a chase. It was in that calm, dismissive turn. He knew I was trapped. He knew the axe was useless. He was just going back to whatever he was doing. I didn't chase him. I ran back to the lobby and used the axe to shatter the keypad next to the main door, shorting the magnetic lock. The alarm screamed. I burst out into the rain and didn't stop running until I was 3 blocks away. The police and my company's response team arrived. They swept the building. They found no one. The mug on the stairwell railing was gone. The system logs showed the elevator had never left manual lockdown mode after the power flicker. According to the data, it never moved. The thermal scan from the patrol car that night showed a single heat signature in the building. Mine. The company fired me for property damage. Leo called me a week later, his voice shaky. He'd been questioned. He told me, off the record, that the site supervisor had reviewed all the logs from the past 6 months. On nights with storm events or power fluctuations, the system would glitch, and on those nights, without fail, the motion sensor on the 9th floor would register activity between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Always the same sector, always unaccompanied by card swipes. They'd written it off as pests or faulty wiring. They think, Leah whispered, that someone knows how to ride the glitches, that there may be an ex-employee who never turned in their master fob, or someone who found a way to spoof the system, but they can't prove it, and they can't find him. I work days now in a warehouse with 50 other people, but sometimes when I'm the last one to leave and I turn off the banks of fluorescent lights, I'll hear the distant hum of machinery powering down. I'll stand there in the gathering dark and I'll wait just to see if the sound starts up again on its own. If you're finding these accounts unsettling, remember to like and subscribe. It helps others find this channel so we can keep sharing these stories. The Night Rest Motel was my last resort. I dropped out of community college. My waitressing job had cut my hours, and the ad for a living night auditor promised a tiny salary plus a free room. Room 14 behind the office. It was a tired L-shaped motel on a state highway, 20 miles from anything. My job was simple. Check in the rare late arrival, balance the day's books, and watch the parking lot from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The owner, Mr. DeVos, was a grim man who said, "Nothing happens here. You see headlights, you rent a room, you don't go outside." The first week was dead quiet. The first anomaly was the reservation book. It was an old ledger, not a computer. On my third night, I noticed an entry for a Mr. Walker in room 214, paid in cash for one night. I hadn't checked anyone in. The handwriting was in Mr. Davos's blocky print. It was a flowing, elegant cursive. I assumed Davos had done it before he left and forgot to tell me. But room 214 was at the far end of the second floor, the one with a broken exterior light. I could see its door from the office window. It was closed, dark, no car parked outside it. I told myself it was a no-show, a goose booking, but the book said the room was occupied. The isolation of the place was absolute. Guests used a payphone. My cell got $1 if I stood on the sidewalk. The highway was a ribbon of darkness, with a truck roaring by every half hour. Around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the payphone outside the office rang. It was a jarring, mechanical sound. I jumped. No one ever called it. It rang 15 times before stopping. 5 minutes later, it rang again. This time, I went out into the cold. I picked up the heavy receiver, Night Rest Motel. Static. Then a voice, distant and fuzzy, like a bad radio signal. It was a man, but I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like he was asking a question. "Hello. I can't hear you," I said. The line clicked, and a new voice came on, crystal clear. A woman's voice, sweet and calm. "Is my room ready?" she asked. I stammered. "Do you have a reservation?" "Oh yes," she said. "Room 214. I'll be there soon." The line went dead. I stood there, the receiver buzzing in my hand. Room 214 was supposedly already occupied by Mr. Walker. I went back inside and looked at the ledger. The entry for Mr. Walker was gone. In its place, in that same elegant cursive, was a new entry. Miss Palmer, room 214. My skin crawled. I picked up the office landline to call Mr. Davos to ask about the book. There was no dial tone, just a soft, wet, crackling silence, like someone crushing dry leaves near the mouthpiece. I decided to lock the office door, not just latch it, but slide the deadbolt I never used. As I did, I saw movement in the parking lot. A figure was walking from the highway toward the motel. No car had pulled over. They just appeared under the orange glow of the sodium vapor light. They walked slowly, purposefully, toward the stairs leading to the second floor. I couldn't see their face, just a dark coat. They climbed the stairs and stopped at the door to room 214. They didn't knock. They didn't use a key. They just stood there, facing the door, for 10 minutes. Then they turned and walked back down the stairs across the parking lot and vanished into the dark field beyond the shoulder of the highway. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Just a weirdo, I whispered. A hitchhiker who got the wrong place. On our latte. I needed a cigarette. I unlocked the office door and stepped onto the sidewalk. The air was freezing as I lit my cigarette. Alududo, leading from the base of the stairs to the office door, were a set of footprints in the thin frost coating the asphalt. Bare footprints. They were fresh. The frost melted away by the warmth of bare skin. They came down the stairs, walked directly to the spot where I was now standing, and then turned and went back. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't heard a door open or close. I hadn't seen anyone. I dropped the cigarette and slammed back into the office. Re-engaging the deadbolt, I grabbed the ledger, my hands shaking, flipping back through the months. I saw it. The same names, recurring: Walker, Palmer, Gray, Simmons. Always in room 214. Always paid in cash. The handwriting was always the same, beautiful cursive. Sometimes the entries were crossed out. Sometimes they weren't. The last anomaly was the sound. A soft, rhythmic knocking. Not on my door. It was coming from inside the wall of my own room, room 14. A gentle asterisk. Tap, tap, asterisk. Like someone politely requesting entry from within the structure itself. I couldn't stay in the office. The knocking in the wall was now a persistent, patient scrape. I needed to get to my car, which was parked around back. To do that, I had to go outside. I peered through the office window. The parking lot was empty, the bare footprints already fading as the frost melted. I took the master key ring and unlocked the office door, stepping out into the biting cold. As I passed under the second floor walkway, I glanced up. The door to room 214 was open. Not wide open, but cracked. A slice of perfect darkness. I froze. From inside that darkness, I heard a voice. It was the same sweet, calm woman's voice from the payphone. It wasn't talking to me. It was reciting something. A monotonous, rehearsed script. Checkout time is 11 a.m. Please leave your key in the room. We hope you enjoyed your stay. It was the exact speech I gave to guests in the morning. Then the voice changed, dropping to a man's low, gruff tone, a perfect imitation of Mr. Davos. Nothing happens here. You see headlights? You rent a room? You don't go outside. Then the woman's voice again, bright and friendly. Is my room ready? A pause. Then, from the darkness of room 214, a hand emerged and curled around the edge of the door. It was pale, the fingers long. It didn't pull the door wider or shut it. It just rested there, holding the door in that exact position, and the voices continued, a looping, distorted tape of every check-in and check-out the motel had ever heard, spoken back into the night from an empty room. I didn't go to my car. I ran straight down the highway, flagging down a state trooper 10 minutes later. I was incoherent. They humored me, took me back to the motel. The door to 214 was closed and locked. The trooper used my master key to open it. The room was standard, clean, vacant. No one was there. The ledger, when they looked, showed no entries for that night at all. Mr. Davos was furious, called me unstable. I quit on the spot. A month later, a different trooper, an older one, came into the diner where I'd found a new job. He recognized me. He sat at my counter and said, off the record, that they'd had reports about that stretch of highway for years. Not accidents, disappearances. Travelers who called from the Netrest payphone saying they'd arrived, then vanished. Their cars would be found abandoned miles away. He said a state forensic audit of the motel's paper record stacks. Stuff showed something odd. The physical ledger had more pages than the carbon copies. Like entries were being added that no one meant to keep a record of. We can't explain it, he said, stirring his coffee. But the new night guy quit. Last week, said the payphone keeps ringing, and when he answers, all he hears is his own voice, asking for a room. I drive a different route to work now, but sometimes, when I'm on a long, empty road at night and my headlights catch a faded sign for some roadside motel, I'll wonder not who might be staying there, but what the walls have learned to repeat, and who they're repeating it for. If these stories of the night shift stayed with you, please like this video, comment with your own experiences, and share it with someone who understands the quiet hours.